Hey guys, welcome to Jazz Piano Daily. This is number 96, and today we're going to be talking about improvising over Georgia, and this is part 2. All right, so let's switch over to the sheet music here. All right, so now what we've done in the past couple of lessons is we've talked about the chords, the scales, the chromatic scale, right? The boulders, the sand, the water, filling it all together. And what I've done here is I've written out 3 different examples for you so you can kind of see how this all comes together. This first line here, which is improvising over the F major to the E minor 7 to A7 altered, is utilizing all chord tones. So you see here we have on the F major 7, all right, so 7, 5, 3, 1, root, then 5, 3. And then when I go to the E minor 7, see I'm just outlining that E minor 7 chord. And when I get to the A7, I just hit the A, the root of the A, and I hold it out for a half note. Remember yesterday we were talking about the play and rest, right? So remember, you can also hold out a note, and that is still considered kind of resting. Right? So if you hold a note out, it's going to give the perception of you resting in your solo. And that's what happens here. Right? And then and so that half note there gives the perception of adding in some rest in your solo. You're not always playing stuff. It gives the listener's ear a chance to kind of, take in what it is you just said, right? Think of that as kind of like the end of a sentence, period at the end of a sentence before you have a new thought. All right, so that's the chord tones. Relatively simple, right? Now, the next part here is scales. Now, notice what I did here is I'm utilizing these triplets, and see how I'm also utilizing like that D natural minor scale, which is an F major scale, right? So this is my 6 minor chord, the D minor. So I would be playing that F major scale starting on D or the D natural minor, and that works perfectly. Once I get to the B minor 7 flat 5, this is where I could utilize that Locrian scale, right? Okay, I'm utilizing the Locrian scale with the natural 9 in there, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, with the flat 9 versus the natural 9. A lot of times that Locrian scale, we might use the natural 9, but on a sharp 4 minor 7 flat 5 chord, it sounds better to use that flat 9, okay? And then when I get to the B flat minor 6, here, you can think of that as chord tones, but you might say, well, wait a second, it's a B flat minor 6 chord, right? But you're playing the 7th there. Yeah, because on that B flat minor 6, I could still think B flat Dorian, right? I could still be thinking of my, just regular B flat minor scale in here. Here, in this case, I'm playing B flat Dorian scale, okay? So that's absolutely fine as well. And see how I have that 7th in there. So I could still kind of conceptualize this as scalar. Anyway. And what I love, too, is check this out right here. This sequencing that's going on. You hear that line is real nice that it ends right to that B and the E there. It really kind of has a nice build-up there. All right? And then, finally, we move to the chromatic scale. Now, take a look at what I did right here. Right? See this right here? Especially this part right there. What do you notice? I literally played my chromatic scale coming down from A just in triplets. Triplet, triplet to the D. Now, when I play this, you might say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound very good. Well, yeah, there's a lot of tension that's being created, but if I play my root and then my root 3/7, this gives that flat 9 chord tension on that D7 chord, right? So the flat 9 is nice. And notice I kind of arpeggiate up that E flat diminished chord, right? Or you can also look at it as flat 9, 3, 5, flat 7 on the D7 chord. Okay, so let me play that these 2 measures. See what happened there? So rather than just playing this on the G minor as plain old 8th notes, it would sound like this. So that's what it would sound like without the articulation, but with the articulation, it sounds like this. Right, so you hear that articulation adds a nice little twist to the improvisation. So in this example, I'm bringing in everything that we've been talking about in the past couple of lessons. The playing and the rest, altering the rhythms, utilizing chord tones, scales, chromatic scale, your articulation, and you can kind of hear and see how this starts to form an improvisation. Now, improvisation is not an easy task. Okay? I'm sure you can get on to YouTube, and I'm sure that there are some of my YouTube videos that have said how easy it is to improvise. Improvisation is difficult, right? It's like learning a language. And anybody that thinks that, learning a language is easy has obviously never learned a language. It's difficult. It takes time, and it takes patience. But what I have found over the years that makes it a lot more palatable and a lot easier is if you break up the language of improvisation into separate parts. You work on these separate parts. You think about these separate parts. You think about these concepts. That makes it easier because then it's not so overwhelming like, oh, I got to do rhythm, I got to do articulation, I got to do the notes, I got to get chord tones. It's too much stuff, right? So that's why in the past 2 lessons, we've talked about those 3 secrets, the chord tones, the scales, the chromatic scale. And then in yesterday's lesson, I was talking about the 3 ways in which your improvisation might suck if you don't fix it. And that is with your rhythm, your articulation, your dynamics. And of course, we also know play and rest is in there as well, all right? So think about those big concepts when you're improvising, right? Improvisation takes a while. A lot of focus is always on, well, what scale do I use? What scale do I use? And the reality is I have seen time and time again with hundreds of students over the years, maybe even thousands at this point, in which a student will play all the right notes, all the right scales and whatnot, but their improvisation sounds not great. Why? Because they're not getting in some of these subtleties that really makes improvisation sparkle. Okay? It's always good to think of analogies, and if we think of the analogy of improvisation being language, you know, you've heard people give speeches or whatnot that are just very boring. They might be saying all great stuff, but if they're doing it in a monotone voice or they're just not engaging, then you start falling asleep while they're talking. And they could be talking about the best thing ever, the most interesting thing, but their delivery is not great. So improvisation is so much about delivery as well. That's the rhythm, that's the articulation, that's the playing and the resting, all right? That's all of that stuff. Your dynamics, that's your delivery. The nuts and bolts of it are your chord tones, your scales, your chromatic scale as well. That's the nuts and bolts. You combine those 3 secrets along with the 3 ways in which you can not suck at your improvisation. You combine those together and you're going to get yourself a really good improvisation, all right? So what I want you to do at this point is download this music, try playing through these lines, all right? And then see how they feel under your fingertips, and then just try altering them. You can change them around. Try changing around the chord tones. Try going through and playing the first 8 measures using that light backing track for Georgia on My Mind, and just improvise using chord tones. When you do it, take one of those concepts. Oh, let me focus on my rhythm. All right, so rather than just playing quarter notes and eighth notes, let me add in some upbeats, some triplets, maybe some 16th notes, some different rhythms in there. Then maybe the next time through you say, okay, let me focus on my dynamics. Let me play super soft. Now let me play louder. Let me alter that between loud and soft, right? So if you think about these individual concepts and you focus on these individual concepts in your practice, you're going to find a lot more success in your improvisation. All right, I will see you guys in the next lesson. To get the first 45 pages of music for free, just go back to jazzpianodaily.com. If you liked the video, please be sure to click the like button and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. To watch the rest of the lessons in this series, just click on the playlist to the right of this arrow. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.